So next we're going to review Catwoman, number 1. This is by Judd Winick in Guillem March. And as you can see by that cover, what you see is what you get with this one. Her breasts are kind of bursting out of her costume on the cover, and the very first panel is of her cleavage. The entire book is pretty much Catwoman, Selina Kyle, in provocative poses in various states of undress. But basically at the beginning it starts out pretty much action-packed, you know, like she's in her apartment, she's leaving with her lovely cats, as these thugs kind of come in and bomb her apartment pretty much. So she's kind of like on the run a little bit from whoever is kind of after her. She's not sure who, because she's, you know, she's like a thief. She gets into lots of trouble with a lot of people. She figures that she probably stole whatever they're looking for. So she doesn't know who it is, though. So she goes to kind of this like contact that she has, who sets her up with a place to stay for now, and kind of gives her some assignments that she can kind of take on to make some cash. Right. And this current one that she goes on, she goes into a room rented like a suite by these Russian mob characters in the that are staying in Gotham that are trying to get a foothold. And she poses as a bartender, but then she sees somebody there who is kind of linked to her past in a violent way. So she kind of gets sidetracked by him after getting some details on a crime that she can kind of take place, painting that she can go after. Then she leaves as Catwoman, kind of like upsetting things a little bit. I don't know, pretty straightforward stuff going on in this book. The ending was kind of a shock, I think, for most people. Basically, Batman comes to visit her where she's staying right now.
Do we want to spoil the great surprise ending?
All right, I won't spoil it exactly, but yeah, Batwoman comes to visit her in an apartment, and you know they've hinted at romances before, and they pretty much take it as far as they can go in this one. I wouldn't say the great surprise of Catwoman, but they obviously go for the shock value in this title. Yeah, it's pretty offensive overall. Like, I can't imagine a woman reading this and not being disgusted by it in one way or another. But they definitely fetishize Selina Kyle throughout this comic book pretty shamelessly. I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, it's nothing that I'm really going to look forward to reading any more of. Yeah. I kind of know, and you kind of know looking at the title what it is going to be. So yeah, that's Catwoman.
Yeah. Well, this was a terrible comic book. I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, he's fetishized and, you know, is kind of sprinkling these diamonds over her, you know, leather-clad, cleavagey body on the cover. The first panel is of her breasts. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not necessarily an inappropriate approach to take with Catwoman. I mean, she's Catwoman, right? We know she wears leather outfit. She's super sexy. I mean, that's kind of that character's thing. That's a part of it. So I don't necessarily think that's a problem. I think there's a way to do that kind of cheesecake, kind of beautiful girl art in comics and make it be a little bit more tasteful than it was here in Catwoman. For example, I mean, Birds of Prey. I mean, these women are beautiful, and they comment in the book on how beautiful they are. Mm-hmm. And Wonder Woman, which we'll look at later, certainly not exploitative at all, but when you first see the character, she's naked.
Yeah.
So, you know,
there's a tasteful way to do it.
There's a tasteful kind of fun way to handle that kind of material. I was just more offended by Catwoman as a lousy comic book. What's the name of the artist?
Guillem March.
Guillem March. Yeah, he doesn't do bad work here. I mean, he has a flashy style, but
I kind of liked some of the style a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. the story, though, even the dialogue were a little clunky, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Catwoman doesn't seem particularly very good at being Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she freaks out at this when she's undercover at this one point, blows her cover, and seems not to really care.
And people can obviously track her down
Her
very
whole
easily.
scheme to steal this painting that's in the midst of this potential simmering mob war seems like just a really terrible idea, right? Yeah, I mean, of all the things to steal, like, why get this, which is obviously going to get her embroiled in this whole situation? And I think let's go ahead and spoil that ending.
All right.
I gotta talk
Turn it
about
off now
it.
if you don't want to hear.
Yeah. So basically, the big end scene is Batman comes to Catwoman's apartment, or the place where she's staying now, and they have sex. And literally, the comic ends with them, like, half undressed but still in their costumes and masks, like, having sex. Like, it's a big splash panel. And
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be taken seriously.
I'm sure.
It just came off as the most ridiculous, tacky, kind of gross.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was kind of embarrassed for comics at that moment. Especially considering, I mean, you know, ideally these new #1 issues are supposed to attract new readers, and Catwoman is one of DC's most well-known characters. I mean, people who don't read comics know who Catwoman is. She's going to be played by Anne Hathaway in Christopher Nolan's next Batman movie. You know, she's a pop culture figure just to a certain extent. And to just have that character in such a... Yeah, it was kind of offensive. I mean, I thought it was disrespectful to the characters.
Yeah.
In a weird way. I was like, it's just, it was not good. There's really no reason for anyone to read this comic book. I almost wonder, okay, were they trying to be, like, so over the top it was almost supposed to be in a knowing and funny way? But it kind of doesn't even matter, because it wasn't funny. I didn't feel anything other than just, like, bafflement as to why this comic existed and why who's the target audience for this comic book? Kids?
Not women, not kids.
Not children, not women, not anyone who I think has any kind of a healthy attitude towards sex and superheroes. Maybe it's like for the weird people you see at like some of the comic book conventions who are in the costumes, who always have like, there's kind of they have
the cosplayers,
a fetishistic kind of vibe to it a little.
Yeah.
So I guess costume fetishists, maybe people who are into leather, or I suppose if you're a Catwoman completist, you'll have to struggle through this one. And good things have been done with the character in the past.
Yeah, there have been a lot of good Catwoman stories.
Yeah,
so.
what a drag.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my most firm negative review of the whole 52. Just a mess. And that final scene was... I mean, come on. If the comic had any redeeming values up to that point, it was completely destroyed by the last few pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on from that. Enough with Catwoman. Let's just forget her for a little while. So we'll go on to something completely different. DC Universe Presents #1. This is, we assume, going to be an anthology title, a la something like the old Showcase, where they will presumably be able to try out new characters and new concepts and new creative teams, presumably with the hope of launching other series. Kind of a tryout book, which is a cool concept and something you don't see as much of these days. But, a lot of the classic Silver Age DC characters that kind of are the foundation of the current DC universe were launched in these kinds of tryout books.
And it gives
The Flash and Justice League appeared in Showcase before.
Yeah, and fans get to see some of their characters, who, might be in the background and stuff like that, kind of in the foreground. They get to see them, like, really shine in these kind of books. Maybe launch some series, bring some attention to some of these characters who are otherwise neglected. So I like the concept of a book like this.
Yeah, I do too. I like the concept of it. So this first one is a Deadman story. The first of a multi-part story, so we'll be Deadman for a few issues at least. It's written by Paul Jenkins with Bernard Chang artwork. So we have kind of a summary of Deadman's origin in this issue. For those not aware, Boston Brand had been a stuntman who was murdered. He now exists kind of as a ghostly presence in a state between life and death, and he is able to inhabit the bodies of other people. And usually, well, I guess the idea is kind of on this journey that he's on through all these various incarnations. You know, he both helps out the individual people whose bodies he's inhabiting with a particular problem they might be having in their lives, and he also takes a step forward on his own spiritual journey towards, I guess, moving on to the next plane of existence, because he was kind of a jerk in life, so he's kind of redeeming himself in undeath, as it were. And that's all explained in the comic book.
Yep.
So that has kind of been the modus operandi for Deadman. Now he has begun to kind of question his purpose and his mission. He has lately been inhabiting people whose problems are more ambiguous. So, for example, he had said recently he had inhabited the body of a priest who is having a crisis of faith. In this issue, he is assigned to inhabit the body of presumably in Iraq or Afghanistan, a war veteran who has lost his legs. So these are people who he's not solving a mystery and fixing the problem in their lives. It's more kind of murky existential kind of issues that he's having to deal with in these later incarnations, and he is starting to question why that is. Why is he having to go through this? Is he helping these people at all? What is the ultimate purpose of this mission that he's been sent on? So that's kind of all that really happens in this issue. There's a lot of summary, a lot of kind of internal angst on the part of Deadman, kind of setting up what will be the story going forward, which seems like a potentially interesting story. I was personally not super into this comic. I thought it was a little dull. It was very wordy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just kind of, so I guess my take on Deadman is it was just okay. I mean, there certainly wasn't anything really wrong or offensive about it, like with Catwoman or something. But yeah, to kick off the DC Universe Presents line, for me personally, Deadman is not really that interesting of a character. And I don't know that they really built a compelling case for him here. What do you think?
Yeah, it was really dense and bogged down, and
it's kind of dull.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was bored by it.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get through too, and I just kind of felt like toward the end, I'm just like, oh my god, isn't this over yet? You know what I mean? That's not a good state of mind to be in when you're reading a comic book. It's it was okay, but I'm not going to pick up the next issue.
Okay story, okay artwork.
Yeah.
If you happen to be a fan of the Deadman character, I mean it's well constructed. So I mean you'll probably want to read this. You probably already have read this. But yeah, if the concept doesn't appeal to you, going in, I certainly don't. Of all the new #1 issues out there, I don't know that this one unfortunately is one that you need to rush to get right away. But so there you go.
Yeah, Deadman.
Kind of an on that one.
Yeah, but not a complete no like Catwoman, but
yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be angry at you if you read Catwoman.
I'm sure people are worried about that. So
right.